Good evening, and calling the meeting to order. Welcome to the West Hartford Public Schools regular Board of Education meeting. It is Tuesday, September the 24th. Charlotte, may you please call the roll?
Mr. Gagnon,
Jason, say it one more time.
Mr. Gagnon,
Present remotely.
Mr. Goldman,
Here.
Dr. Harris,
Here.
Ms. Merrimon, Mrs. Nazarella,
Present.
Dr. Thomas-Farquharson,
Here.
Mrs. Yagaloff,
Present.
Student Representative Sarah Granquist,
Present.
and Student Representative Alexis New-Young.
Present.
Thank you. Alexis, may you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We do not have a revision to the agenda order, and now it is time for public communications. This is an opportunity where we're able to hear from you, your thoughts, your questions, your concerns, and your suggestions. Each individual is allowed 3 minutes to speak, and we ask for you to please come to the podium and share your name and your town of residence. Please be mindful that we are attentively listening to you. However, it is policy that we do not respond to comments as they are being made. With this being the second meeting of the month, we are listening, or rather receiving, comments on agenda items only. And for the purpose of our awareness, tonight's agenda items include revision of policies 4011 and 5691 as a first reading, safety and security update, personnel actions, and approval of the September 3rd Board of Education minutes. We have a list here, and I'll start with those who have signed up on the list, and we have Addie listed.
Addie, West Hartford. I'm here to talk about safety. On September 9th and 10th, I walked my daughter to the intersection of Park and South Main. She's a new Sedgwick student. There was no crossing guard present at all. I sent in a request for information as to why there was no crossing guard and what happened, and would there be a crossing guard. If you're not aware, South Main and Park, there have been 2 fatalities, one further up at Farmington and Park. It is a 4-lane road that it cannot carry the traffic that's there as it is. It is extremely dangerous. I sent my request for information to Mr. Dempsey and to the Board of Education members and to the superintendent. Mr. Dempsey forwarded my concerns to the WHPD, as apparently crossing guards fall under the police. I did not hear from the superintendent's office, and I only heard today from Dr. Farquharson, who said it was being handled by the other entities, and she hoped I had an answer. Very flowery language and no substance, and the first time she's ever answered any of my concerns when I've emailed. On the 11th of September, there was a crossing guard, an officer there, who took a few steps in towards the intersection when the walk sign came on, did not go into the center of it. My daughter went to cross, and somebody blew a red light. Luckily, I had seen it coming, and I told her to stop before she got any further. You're talking about the safety of our students. We have 3 lawsuits right now, 2 for death of children and 1 for a sexual assault of an ESOL student. In those court documents, it shows that there is a lack of following policies and procedures. In fact, there is statements stating that school officials did not do what they should have done for the child who was sexually assaulted and prohibited an exam of that child. You want to talk about safety? You can't even guarantee that there's a crossing guard that is going to be there every day to cross our children safely back and forth to school. You cannot keep them safe in the school. You are failing. I have not heard from the superintendent's office about this matter. I heard from you today, Dr. Farquharson, and everybody wants to pass the buck. These are our children. We are all responsible, and we come to you with concerns and problems, and you pass the buck. You do not address them. You do not have our children's safety in mind. You do not care. It is very apparent. And it's about time you did. And everybody's going to sit at that table and tell you the policies and procedures we have in place and how good we're doing and how fantastic we're doing. I'm the only speaker. You can give me a minute.
Excuse me, your time has expired. Thank
Take
you.
your job seriously.
Thank you. That was the only person listed on the paper here. Is there anyone else who would like to make a public comment? We shall pause on public communication. Now moving on to non-staff communications and reports, and this is where we're able to hear from our student representatives what is happening within their schools. Before we do that, I want to formally welcome our student representative, Alexis Nugent, who had a designee here the last meeting because she was rightfully being a wonderful student and a student athlete. So she was attending to that task, and we're so glad that she's here today. So I want to say again, welcome, Alexis, and of course, Sarah, welcome to you once again. Sarah, may you please share with us what's happening at Hall?
So over at Hall, things are pretty much back in full swing. All of our sports seasons are underway, and the first Hall Conard event will be this Saturday with girls soccer. We have 2 new head coaches this year, Ellie Tate coaching field hockey and Steve Markey coaching football. Our first football game was Friday night, which was well attended, and in general, there are many different sports practices and games going on every day after school. In-school college visits, where a representative from a college comes to speak with students, started last week at Hall. And there have been 13 college visits already, and we have many more scheduled over the next few months. Last week, we also had auditions for our fall musical, which is The Addams Family, and Hall's Unified Theater production has started as well. We are looking forward to our annual Curriculum Night event tomorrow. Parents are invited to Hall, where they will follow their students' schedules and meet with each of their teachers in 8 time blocks that model the 8 periods of the school day. Our select orchestra and choir, Celestine Choraliers, will be performing in the hallway at this event during passing time. We also recently had 3 seniors that were recognized as National Merit semifinalists, which means that these 3 students scored in the top 1% of Connecticut seniors who took the PSAT last October.
Thank you. Alexis, sharing about Conard.
Hi everyone, my name is Alexis, as you know, and I'm glad to finally meet you all. I'd like to thank Herschel Urabelli for filling in this position at the last meeting and doing an amazing job. Furthermore, on the behalf of the Conard student body, I'd like to thank our administrative team, teachers, coaches, parents, and all other members of the Conard faculty and staff for accommodating the students and helping us adjust to the new school year. We have had an outstanding start to the year and cannot emphasize enough how much of that is because of you all. Thank you. With that being said, as we continue to move through the school year, Conard has many exciting events coming up. First of all, our curriculum night will also be held tomorrow on September 18th at 6:30 p.m. We invite all parents to attend this night where you are able to meet all of your students' teachers and learn more about their school day. Additionally, Conard is hosting a financial aid night, which will be held virtually at 6:30 p.m. on Monday, September 30th. On the topic of colleges, we would like to mention that the college fair for both Conard and Hall will be held again in the Conard cafeteria this year on October 9th at 6:30 p.m. If available, students should stop by to learn more about various colleges that they may be interested in. Lastly, while this is not fun for everyone, we want to remind students that PSAT testing will occur during the school day on Thursday, October 10th. In addition to these events, Conard has brought the Smart Pass system over to our school as well. For those that do not know what that is, it is a way for students to initiate their own passes to their desired location on a laptop or kiosk. Then, hall monitors are able to access all the passes and keep everything flowing smoothly during the school day. Outside of all of these in-school activities, Conard students are involved with many things outside of the school day, such as various clubs and sports. This week, clubs such as the Conard Current, Environmental Club, Service Club, different STEM clubs, and many others have begun their work for the year. Our improv troupe, Parachute, even has their first performance in the Black Box on Thursday. We are so excited to see what everyone has accomplished by the end of the year. Additionally, Conard sports have been going strong, with our first home football game being this Friday. We want to congratulate both boys and girls volleyball teams from 2023 to 2024 for obtaining a national recognition for academics from the American Volleyball Coaches Association. Furthermore, we'd like to formally welcome Coach Greg Smedberg as our new head coach of boys soccer. Lastly, our first matchup against Hall will be this Saturday at Hall for our girls soccer team, so we wish them good luck and go Red Wolves. Finally, I wanted to take this time to recognize the importance of National Suicide Prevention Month, which will be taking place during the month of September. At Conard, there will be several activities revolving around National Suicide Prevention Month, as we believe that it is a time to raise awareness about suicide prevention and to bring out hope. I even just learned that in case of a mental health emergency, an individual can call or text 988 and there will be someone waiting to help them. We will be doing a yellow ribbon campaign at the end of the month to further emphasize its importance. Thank you.
Thank you both, Alexis and Sarah. Thank you. Now moving on to unfinished business, which we do not have any of. So we shall proceed to new business, where we first have a motion by Lorna Thomas-Farquharson, Gayle Harris, and Jason Gagnon to accept revised and new policies as a first reading. Therefore, seeking a motion that the Board of Education accept as a first reading the following revised Title IX policies, which were reviewed by the Board Policy Subcommittee, those being Personnel Series 4000, 4011, Prohibition of Sex Discrimination, and Student Series 5000, 5691, Prohibition of Sex Discrimination. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Gayle. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Claire. Discussion. And so thank you so much, Dr. Murrow, for being before us. And teammates, just as an intro, as we know, that with our policies, there are many policies that we formulate within our district, and there are also many ones that we adhere to because they are required federally or statewide in terms of statutory laws and regulations. And the ones before us today fall in that category. However, it is important for us to review what this entails. And if I may say, and Dr. Murrow, please correct me if I'm wrong, because these are policies that we legally are required to adhere to, our district has already been following suit in that regard. So by us reviewing these policies as just a first reading, we will come for a second reading to formally vote on them. However, our district is following suit in following these policies. This is a way for us to ensure that we are keeping up to date with our documentation in doing so. And so with that, Dr. Murrow, we'll pass to you.
No, you're absolutely correct with that. And I'd also point out, as we talked a little bit about, this really substantially doesn't change how we provide a safe and inclusive environment in Connecticut for our staff and for our students. Connecticut has always been ahead of the curve when it comes to protection of individual rights, and this really isn't much of a change about how Connecticut districts are doing business, while it may be for other parts of the country. But as you mentioned, the new rules did go to an effect at a federal level on August 1st. And so we've been following this and are mandated to follow this since August 1st. And so this is just a really paperwork catching up with the legal foundations that we have to operate under.
Thank you. Questions, comments? Jason and then Claire.
That's
Not Jason, Ethan. Jason, I'm calling you, pardon me. Ethan and then Claire.
I'm not sure who to direct the question to, but as I'm reading, because there was a lot of edits in ads, what is the purpose of the change?
So really what it is it's addressing how schools must respond to sex discrimination and sexual harassment, which is now called sex-based harassment under the new guidance. And it provides a broader jurisdiction. Before Title IX previously only applied to conduct that occurred in the school's program or activity, and now applies to off-campus activity if the school has what's called disciplinary authority for that process. In Connecticut, it can mean that conduct that happens off-campus, if there's a significant nexus or impact at school, that can be considered falling under Title IX regulations for that. It gives a broader scope, broader definition of sex discrimination and sex-based harassment, so more conduct is considered under Title IX. Discrimination on the basis of sex includes discrimination on the basis of sex stereotypes, sex characteristics, pregnancy or related conditions, sexual orientation, gender identity. It expands protections for LGBTQ plus individuals, but Connecticut, again, as I mentioned, has had these protections for a long time, so it's not a new change for Connecticut there. It refers now, the regulations refer now to sex-based harassment, not sexual harassment. And the definition of sex-based harassment continues to have three types: a hostile environment, quid pro quo, and specific offenses such as assault, violence, domestic violence, stalking. And so one of the big changes for school districts is that there's a streamlined process, and responding to complaints is now more streamlined, where in the past we've had investigations and complaints that have gone on for almost a full year. As far as an investigation goes, this is now a more streamlined process. School districts can adopt one process for investigation rather than separate procedures. And we can also have a unified process where one person or a team of person can conduct the investigation and make the decision. In the past, you had to have separate investigators, you had to have separate decision makers, and so we would oftentimes contract with other people outside of the district to be different components in the investigation.
So I'm still confused at the reason, but I thought I also read that this has, if it's right, the person being accused doesn't have the right to defend themselves?
No.
Or doesn't get me to see their accuser? There's no interaction to be accused?
I don't have an answer for that, but again, I don't have an answer for that.
I mean, and maybe it's for the future for policies, if we could have something to say, this is why the change is being made, because there's a lot of additions and deletions.
Well, no, I understand that. The reason, I mean, ultimately, the reason why the changes are being made is because we're mandated to follow the federal law. And that's why the changes, that's why every district in Connecticut had to make the same changes.
I was also told that this one isn't federally, there's injunctions against it as well?
There are injunctions by other states that are against this. Connecticut does not have that.
I understand, but it's still going through the judicial process.
In other states, we're obligated to start following it as of August 1st.
I'm good for now.
Claire.
I notice a lot of the changes are very similar and easily replaced by the similar words. But the one change that just seemed a little strange is on page 3. After the word sex discrimination, the word hire is crossed out, and it says sex discrimination occurs when an employer refuses to hire, discipline, or discharge. And then when it's rewritten, it says sex discrimination occurs when a person, because of a person's sex. Do you know why hires is no longer in there? And I'm just wondering why it's only within the school district. It's not for people outside that are being brought in.
What do you mean being brought in? I don't know.
Well, sex discrimination they're saying it's not for anyone that's being hired by the district. It's only for people.
I might be able to answer, Andy. She's at the second paragraph on page 3. Yeah, I would just have you read a little further, Claire. So it says, under the old language, occurs when an employer refuses to hire, or disciplines or discharges an individual or otherwise discriminates. So it's sort of painting this blanket with all those words. And in the new language, it's more concise language and simply says sex discrimination occurs when a person is denied participation in or benefits of a program. So it's just kind of casting a blanket instead of having these discrete, separate characterizations.
Do you have a follow-up question? Or?
No, it seems like you're taking out the non-hired people in the changes.
I don't think that's the case.
Okay.
I don't, well, thank you. No, that's all right. Go ahead, Gayle.
Yeah, Andy, I had just a couple of questions. One is, I didn't exactly understand what the difference, and this might be just my own ignorance, but what is the difference between the two policies? They seemed like very, very similar.
One applies to staff and personnel, one applies to students.
One
That's the
applies
only
to
difference.
students, okay.
We have to have separate policies in Connecticut based on how the law is written for that.
Okay, and then my second question is, you talked about off-campus. I would just like a little bit more clarity to this. Does that mean like if somebody's doing something in the park with their friends, has nothing to do with school, then that can be now pulled into a school, into this policy?
The way that Connecticut has always defined off-campus activity and a district's relationship to off-campus activity is something called a legal nexus, is how they've used it. And the language really is whether or not there is an impact or disruption, significant disruption to the educational process, is how they've always classically defined that. And so by extending it for that, if there is an activity that occurs, say, at a party somewhere that causes a cascade or a significant impact or a significant connection to a school or to the district from that, that could be considered under that because there is then that extension to that. Whereas in the past, it had to be at an activity that was school-sponsored, say a dance or an athletic event or something like that. This just broadens it to really anything that then comes into our schools could be considered a nexus for that. And that's the way that the discipline and the Connecticut statute has always defined it.
Piggyback, just a question for you, Andy. So that matches, am I correct, to our policies regarding alcohols and drugs, bullying, and all the other policies?
It's just basically saying that that if it happens outside of our building but still impacts the students and the schools and such, that we can consider it under a jurisdiction.
So, I mean, that just to me seems like a very blurry line and a little bit problematic because, you know, if you have a bunch of kids go to a party at someone's house and they do things that we would find problematic, you're now saying that the school can sort of come into that situation and this can now become like a school issue where I feel like this is someone's private house, and obviously the behavior's problematic, but I don't really feel like it should become now.
What we're saying, though, is what the policy says is that individuals have a right to bring it to the school for an investigation. It's not up to the school to initiate an investigation on that. This is a student's right and a parent's right to initiate this, and it's outlining then the process that we would go ahead and have to follow to investigate that. But it's not we're now out there policing the party and such.
Okay, all right, that's a good clarification.
Any other questions or comments? Otherwise, we'll, Ethan, and then we'll go back to Gayle.
On page 6, section 12, in the middle of the page, it's the Title IX coordinator is alleged to, I always forget. Middle of the page, if the Title IX coordinator is alleged to have engaged in sex discrimination, and it's also on page 12. Is there a better way to word?
Where are you seeing this?
Middle of the page.
On page 6?
6, yeah.
Blue.
Okay.
Blue's what we're doing, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mhm.
The Title IX coordinator is alleged to have engaged in sex discrimination. Board employees shall, I understand if, it just seemed like, and it's also on 12, and I think it may be somewhere else. Is there a better way to word that so we don't imply guilt to the Title
Ethan,
IX?
if you don't mind, can you read the entire sentence just for viewers who may not
Sure.
have it
Okay,
before them?
sorry.
Thank you.
If the Title IX coordinator is alleged to have engaged in sex discrimination, board employees shall instead notify their building principal or the superintendent of schools.
What that's doing, Ethan, is it's providing a pathway. If the person who is in charge of Title IX, who you're supposed to report Title IX to, if that person you're alleging has engaged in a violation of Title IX, it's simply saying you go and talk to these people instead.
I get that.
Yeah.
My only comment is there a better way to wordsmith so we don't imply that the Title IX coordinator, it just seemed to me that
It's alleged. I mean, the word they use is alleged, and this is.
all right. It comes across assuming guilt.
Well, no, I would counter that. I can see what you're saying, but I would say that it comes across providing an alternative so that the person doesn't feel like they're, the way the law is written is they're providing an alternative so that the person doesn't feel that their road is blocked if they want to go ahead and provide it.
And I'm good with that. I just figure there's got to be a better way to word it.
Okay.
Gayle? That's all right.
Got it. So I just want to also clarify that from a legal standpoint, and that this is not now increasing the, I'm going to use the word penalties, than from the previous policy. So, for example, I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. So if somebody were to somebody were to, let's say, use the wrong pronouns for somebody, is this policy now increasing the penalty for something like that?
This policy doesn't deal with penalty. This policy is simply outlining a process that schools have to follow and districts have to follow, and it's outlining definitions of what practices fall within that policy. Yes.
Okay.
Claire?
And if I'm to understand, this was advised by Shipman and Goodwin and is followed by at least 60 or so.
Yeah, and this is the official Shipman and Goodwin policy. It's about 60-70% of all the districts in Connecticut are using it. The other 30% are using the CABE policy, which is almost word for word.
And it's all based on state law.
It's based on the federal law. It's based on the 1972 educational amendments.
But it's law that is not contested in the state of Connecticut
Correct.
at this time.
Correct.
Thanks.
If that changes, then we would again follow that law. Okay. We're also, the way that it's actually written is that we follow this law and these procedures for any action or any activity that is reported to us that is being claimed to occur after August 1st of this year. If someone was to come today and say, this happened to me in June or something, we would be following the previous law and the previous guidance as far as the way we've been instructed to do it from the Department of Education. So just to confuse it even further.
So, Andy, are you saying that if somebody were to bring an injunction against this in the state, then it would revert back to the old policy until?
I'm saying that's for someone who's higher up than me to decide. What I'm saying is that if there was an injunction at a state level, if there was something, we would receive guidance from the Connecticut Department of Education, clarifying which portions we were putting in place and not.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? All right, so again, Ethan, you.
Yeah, I'm one of the things I'm struggling with on this is, and I'll use page 3 as an example. At the second paragraph, or sex discrimination paragraph, it says, when a person, because of the person's sex, is denied participation in or the benefits of any educational program or actively receiving federal finance assistance. Is it anything in the school, or is it just anything receiving federal financial assistance? Because that's referenced quite a few times.
So that's an or statement. It
Yeah.
says or any activity. So,
Or
it's,
the
so
benefits,
it could be
yeah.
any of those things in the
Why
list.
does it differentiate?
That's actually current policy. That's what's currently in the black is unchanged from what we've had for the past.
That's fair, but, and then, can I just ask, sex stereotypes? So this includes discrimination on the basis of sex stereotypes, sex character. I don't know what that means. I don't.
You can't go to cooking class.
Yep.
When you think of sex stereotypes as in describing that only persons who as Claire said, you identifying as a male, you should not be going to a cooking class. That's a stereotype, that is.
It would be a sex stereotype if we were to separate all of the all of the students by gender and have the females go and do gymnastics while we sent the boys
Oh,
out to
so
do
you're
football.
Okay.
The girls are nodding at me like, yes, that would be correct? I mean, that's a sexual stereotype.
Wood shop.
Correct.
You can't go to
Yeah.
home ec.
We don't let girls do auto shop.
All right, it just seems.
That would be, 'cause
it's
again-
It happens.
It happens, Ethan.
All right.
It needs to be addressed, and it's important that we're doing that. Addressing it, not conducting sexual stereotypes, to be clear.
Other questions or comments? Again, this is a first reading, and this is wonderful, the questions that are being asked. All right, well, with that, Dr. Murrow, thank you so very much. This will come before us again for a second reading, but until then, we shall move on with the agenda. And moving on now to staff communications and reports, where we will receive our superintendent's report. Passing it to you, Mr. Vicinas.
Thank you very much. I'm appreciative of the comments that we've already received from our student body, our student representatives, excuse me. I want to make mention not only the importance of this month as Suicide Prevention Month. This week specifically, we kicked off National Hispanic Heritage Month, and I'm pleased to call attention to the rich history and the cultural contributions of not only the Hispanic community, the Latino communities as well. Very excited to share some celebrations for the district. We start with Governor Lamont visited Aiken Elementary School in early September, right after the day after our previous meeting, to make the formal announcement that the Siberian Husky is the official state dog. And we had the American Kennel Club on hand with several Huskies. The children got to meet the governor, and the children got to meet the dogs. And even the governor said they were more excited to meet the dogs. Sticking with Aiken, Shannon Majinski, the principal at Aiken, was honored at this year's annual Bridge Breakfast. Shannon was named as this year's recipient of the Build No Fences Award, which is presented to an individual who exemplifies collaborative spirit and goes above and beyond in the service of children and families in West Hartford. And that is a very apt description of Shannon every day. Just received news today of Pam Murphy, our Visual Arts Department Supervisor, being named the 2024 Connecticut Outstanding Art Administrator by the Connecticut Art Education Association. It's an annual recognition for an art administrator who recognizes for contributions in art education at all levels, and Pam is very deserving. Last week marked the beginning of our open house. You heard a little bit about that, not only at our high schools, but at our middle schools, curriculum nights across many of our elementary schools. This will continue this week and into early next week to include the kickoff meeting of SEPTO, our special education PTO, on September the 25th. We were excited to open the new portable classroom spaces this week at Duffy Elementary. Those spaces house the second grade team. Their rooms are currently being refit with new windows and with fresh air systems. And as those classrooms are updated, the new spaces will serve as a swing space to temporarily house other classrooms as they receive the same update. Parents will have the opportunity to view the new portable spaces at some point this week, and all of that will be communicated through Christy Laverty, the principal. I want to give Christy my thanks, the entire Duffy staff, Andy Morrow, Bob Palmer, and the entire crew working on the project. I wanted to share that in the wake of the Appalachia High School shooting in Winder, Georgia, schools across the state and the country have received a number of hoax threats, many of these being spread across on social media. Locally, we've seen this here in Connecticut, and we've recently reported of a threat through our own, has been reported to us, through our own anonymous alert systems. School district leadership acted immediately, collaborating with our West Hartford Police Department to identify and assess the person responsible, ultimately determining that there was no credible threat here in our community, there was no safety concern to the school or the community at large. But I'm very thankful for the West Hartford PD, who provided additional police presence at our schools on Monday morning to ensure visibility. And I want to publicly thank our principal, Jocelyn Tamburello Noble, her team, again, Dr. Morrow, Eric Dempsey, Joanna Blumetti, the entirety of our security team, and all of the law enforcement professionals within West Hartford PD. On curriculum notes, this week, the entire REACH family, which is to say the staff and students, participated in the first of a 4-part empowerment leadership program. The goals of the workshop are not only centered around student leadership, but also to create a sense of unity and team within the REACH community. Many of the students will have the opportunity to take the content they learned from the workshop in conjunction with some extension activities as part of a mastery experience project. This coming Friday, September the 20th, students from Conard and Hall, as well as classmates from Kingswood Oxford and Northwest Catholic, will take part in the West Hartford Youth Leadership Academy, which is being hosted by the Town of West Hartford Social Services Department, facilitated by the West Hartford Prevention Council. Students will have the opportunity to learn about mental health, substance abuse, recovery from experts in these fields, as well as individuals with lived experience. And specific topics to be addressed include the Student Navigator Training and National Alliance on Mental Illness, opioid overdose awareness and prevention, social media safety, health promotion skills, team building exercises will also be a part of the program, and students will have the opportunity, I believe, for some certificates. So a big thanks to Assistant Director Liz, and I'm going to kill her name here, Buczynski of the Social Services. I'll get that better, Liz. I apologize. October coming up is Fire Prevention Month. During the month of October, the fire department will be visiting our elementary schools to provide age-appropriate education to all of our students. A big thanks to Deputy Fire Marshal Wilcox and the West Hartford Fire Department for your collaboration. Our leadership team received training in restorative practices in preparation for turnkey training that they'll conduct with their staff in October. The focus of the training was around high expectations, intentional teaching, and invitational teaching practices. This content is adapted from the Restorative Practices Playbook, and excited to have our own Executive Director of Equity Advancement who led that for you. Thank you, Teresa. Lastly, by way of general announcement, the Next Chapter bookstore, which is run by our post-secondary program, and as we've mentioned, is going to be nationally recognized at a conference that Melissa and Andy will attend. They're celebrating their 3rd birthday, alongside the celebration of a release of a newly published and illustrated book called Turning Pages Together. It was created and illustrated by our program students. Members of the public, you're welcome to join us on Friday, October 4th, 10:30 a.m. at the bookstore, which is right here downtown at 13 South Main Street. So that is my report, pending any questions.
Thank you very much. Lots going on. Teammates, any questions or comments regarding our superintendent's update? Yes.
Yeah, would we be able to hear from those youth that are going through the mental health prevention and leadership program, maybe when they're done, just because mental health is a big issue in our schools, and that's a really cool program, and we'd love to hear about what they learned or what they are going to apply. Yeah, it just sounds really cool.
I will absolutely take a note, and I believe I'll also say that Jason, I know, is on the Board of Education subcommittee that attends the Prevention Council meeting, so either between his, potential report out from him or some sharing that we're able to do, I'd be happy to get you guys updates on that.
And just to chime in, I think they would love to be able to share that. At least the Prevention Council would love to be able to have a platform to share the work they're doing around mental health, and particularly this program, which is actually a pilot program for the state. So West Hartford's the first to try this program and to train student peers to be really leaders in the school on mental health. So the district's excited and the state is excited about it.
Thank you for the comment, Jason. Thank you. Yes, Gayle.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. I was wondering if it's possible in the future that we as a board would get notification when there is like an event that happened at Conard with the hoax, just because people came up to me and were telling me about it and I didn't have any knowledge of it. So I know sometimes we do get some of that information, but I know something happened, I think, on Friday that the board...
Yeah, so I wanted to get with you offline, Gail, to ask, because I know we did send an email out that... No. So the schools community sent an email out to the school community in general, and then there was a follow-up email that should have been received by everyone in the district, to include the Board of Education, but all parents through our school messenger system. It was actually it was Dr. Morrow who sent that, so it came listed under his name, and it came that same essentially that same weekend, that same day. That we were following up communication. So if members of the board or if members of the listening public did not receive that for some reason, we'll look into that. But I know that I happened to be away on a drill weekend. Andy sent that, came into my inbox, and just by virtue of we kind of select all schools. So if there's some hang up on that, we'll look into that for you.
Appreciate that, because I don't think either one of us got it.
I looked for it too, I couldn't find it.
Okay.
Thank you, Gayle, for sharing that, because I know that I received it and some others on the board did as well, under the heading, as you described, of going out to the entire district. So thank you. We'll make sure that.
Yeah, I'd say I got it, but I got it to my other email. And I'm on the board and I'm a parent. So sometimes I do get both because I know I had email issues before. So I guess hearing that some board members didn't get it, I don't know if I got it because it was a parent communication or because we're
No, if it
parents.
came from
Yeah.
Andy, it was a district communication. So, but we'll look into that because that sounds odd. Yeah, I don't have an explanation for that.
Any other questions or comments? It would be wonderful if we didn't even have to receive such communication because such events were not happening. But unfortunately, nonetheless, that is. We certainly want to keep our lines of communication open. Any other questions or comments regarding our superintendent's update? All right, hearing none, we now shall move on to staff reports. Thank you, Mr. Vicinas. Now moving on to staff reports and board discussions where we will receive our safety and security update. And so as the team comes to the table, we'll pass the mic over for introductions to be had.
All right. So with me this evening, Mr. Eric Dempsey, wearing a sports jacket, you should all note, who's our Director of Safety and Security, Assistant Chief Riccabon, and Sergeant Hopkins, who are joining us tonight. So you've heard us say it before, but I do want to reiterate that we consider the physical and the emotional safety of our students and our staff our primary responsibility. And we approach this work in many ways. One of the ways we start is by establishing a trusting, supportive, and a safe school climate. And our work over the past decade and more really has shown that when we create a culture where all of the members of the community feel connected and where students feel comfortable asking for help and reporting concerns, our schools become safer. And there's multiple evidence that we'll talk about of that. Another important aspect of our approach in enhancing the physical safety measures in each of our school buildings, you've heard us talk over the years when we talk in our capital improvement budget of the different upgrades that we've done at each of our school buildings. And really, we assess each building on a continual basis, which really considers the particular characteristics of the site, and we're always looking to integrate the newest and most effective technologies that are available. The third prong of our approach is really advanced planning and preparation, including drills, training opportunities, both for our students and for our staff, and interagency cooperation. I want to start off and talk a little bit about safe school climate. One of the big things we've been focusing on, especially over the past 5 years, that you've heard Melissa and I both talk about is our mental health support. And in addition to our students receiving lessons on strengthening self-management and examining conflict resolution approaches, proactive communication, understanding how to make responsible decisions, our counselors and our clinical staff receive training on a variety of areas, including trauma-informed practices. The district continues to implement a contract with the Bridge to service additional students that need our supports, as well as recently establishing mental health clinicians in our high schools. The schools also employ various risk assessment tools to evaluate threats, and what we've been using is the Comprehensive School Threat Assessment Guidelines, CSTAG. And this is a tool for responding to situations when a student makes a threat to another person, to a school, or to the community. And the key of this process for us is really slowing it down. Oftentimes in a situation where there is a threat, things are moving very quickly. And so once we've established that everyone is safe, this process for us is to slow down and really understand why someone did the action that they did, why they made the threat, and truly what the risk is. And so a key to that is slowing down and making sure we have the right people in the room to get a full picture of the student and a situation. This CSTAG is completed by a trained and certified behavior specialist who utilizes a team approach involving parents, the student, administrators, teachers, and law enforcement in evaluating all of the various risk factors, weighing the signs, the warning signs, and looking at stabilizing factors to arrive at a description of risk for a particular point in time. And we're very clear in that process, and Eric will talk a little bit more about that. We're very clear in understanding a student and a situation before that person returns to our community. What has helped with the process over the years is also we've created a culture where students and parents feel it's okay to share concerns and ask for help through systems such as our anonymous alert platform, as we saw on Sunday, when a concern was shared on that platform at 3 o'clock, 2:30 in the morning? Was it about 2:30? Roughly, yeah. About 2:30, it was immediately responded to, and I believe West Hartford Police had secured the situation by 3:30 and had shared with us that the threat was contained and taken care of, which gave us then time in the morning to talk to the right people, to make sure when we were sending information out to not only to the parents at the school, but also then later on that Sunday to the entire district, that we were able to share what had occurred and that the situation was contained. So I want to pass it on to Eric to talk a little bit more about that.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. As the superintendent alluded to, the start of the school year, unfortunately, nationally there was the situation in Georgia with the school shooting, which obviously creates anxiety and concern throughout the country. One of the things we worked on last year in collaboration with the police department was getting out to the schools and the parent community and educating them as to what we do as a security team in West Hartford and help to alleviate some of those anxieties when situations unfortunately happen. We work tirelessly behind the scenes to ensure the safety of everyone. Last night, the Assistant Chief Frickabaugh and I were on the phone, I think, at 10 o'clock last night discussing a matter. So, it doesn't matter the time of day or time of night when something happens. We do follow, the Secret Service model for threat assessment and prevention of targeted school violence. And one key part of that is creating a safe school climate built on culture of safety and respect through a centralized reporting system, and that's our Anonymous Alerts program. Our Anonymous Alerts program is accessible on both computers and a mobile app. It's designed to provide two-way communication, allowing staff and students to acknowledge receipt of the message and request more information. At the start of each year, all principals make students, staff, and caregivers aware of the tool, educate students of the importance of reporting safety issues. Flyers are posted around the schools to remind students to report situations of concern. And the anonymity of this approach encourages those who feel vulnerable to speak up without fear of reprisal. Since we've implemented the system in 2018, we went from 70 reports or uses of the system, and it's gradually built. 2019, we had 126, 2020, 138, leading up to last year where we had 447 documented reports from students and the community of anything of concern that they feel necessary to report. So it's been, the system has been a tremendous success. One of the things we're very proud of is our partnership with the West Hartford Police Department. We continue to be grateful for our school resource officers and community resource officers. They're an integral part of our schools. They are trusted, familiar faces in our schools, assisting with lessons, safety, and support at all levels. We talked about this last year, and we continue to move forward with our new state-of-the-art alert system for lockdowns and building-specific emergencies called Informacast. To date, we have 3 schools completed, and we continue to work with our IT department to map out the rest of the district and all of our schools. The new system allows the school to be placed in a lockdown or activated any other building emergency procedures in a more efficient and effective manner. The system, a key advantage of the system is it calls 911 and activates an audio and visual alerts throughout the building. Work continues to improve on the physical security side of things at all entrances to each building. We're finalizing plans for redesigned entrances, hopefully by the end of this year with Wolcott and King Philip. We also continue to add cameras throughout the district to enhance physical security. Another partnership with the police department at the beginning of our school year. All of our security staff trained with the West Hartford Police Department. It was a joint training held in the training room where we received updates on active shooter events, lessons learned from recent instances, and also updated medical response training, including bleed control and tourniquet application. Schools implement the state of Connecticut mandatory school safety drills each year. We attend those drills along with the police department to evaluate those in conjunction with the fire department and West Hartford Emergency Management. We're in the process of updating our district-wide all-hazard plan, which is due to the state November 1st. This is submitted to the Department of Homeland Security and Emergency Management as required. This is a collaborative effort working again with the West Hartford Police Department and the West Hartford Fire Department and Emergency Management. Again, this report is just a brief synopsis of what we do, in the West Hartford school system. The scope of the work to keep schools safe and secure cannot be fully captured in one report. It's the daily interactions with staff that we have with students and caregivers and direct communication among stakeholders that are crucial elements of the district's approach to provide a safe school environment for everybody. So I'd like just to open it up for any questions anybody might have.
Thank you. Teammates, questions? Yes, LaToya.
Hi, and I'm so sorry if this is not a smart question. I just don't know. Are the security guards armed with anything?
A smile and the best training.
Okay.
No.
Gayle.
Yeah, just to follow up on what LaToya's asking, and I also want to thank you for everything that you do to keep our students safe, and particularly the West Hartford Police Department. So there's nobody in any of our schools that's armed?
No, the school resource officers and the community resource officers that are part of the West Hartford Police Department carry weapons, but our security officers are not armed.
So the resource officers are armed?
Correct.
And they are in the school, which they're in our high schools?
They're in the high schools, and then the community resource officers are in the middle schools and the elementary schools.
And the community resource officers are also armed?
Correct.
Okay, so I guess what I'm asking is there an armed person in every school while the kids are in school?
The community resource officers split between the middle schools and the elementary schools, whereas the school resource officers are assigned to each of the high schools.
Okay, so I'll just take the high school.
At the high school level, yes.
There's somebody armed in the school at all times?
At the high school level, yes.
Okay, and then in the middle
And at
schools?
the elementary, it depends upon the lessons that are being taught and the schedules that they're on.
So can you quantify in our middle schools, like how often there is somebody in that school that's armed?
We really wouldn't want to quantify that information for the public, Gayle. Just it represents more or less a breach of a security protocol. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, given, what happened, sorry, I don't want to, I can say it. I'll just keep going. What happened in Georgia, a few weeks ago, and the fact that there's over 350 school shootings in the country every single year, I'm wondering why we don't have somebody armed in the middle school, considering that we saw just a few weeks ago a 14-year-old come to school with a weapon and kill 4 people. So that's my question.
Well, And it's a good question. I think we do have school resource officers at our high schools, and we do have community resource officers at our middle schools and our elementary schools. There's the Georgia high school shooting was the 45th school shooting in the U.S. in 2024. So it's the 45th. There have been 385 mass shootings in America across the country since the beginning of the year, which is more than 1.5 a day. And so, again, there's absolutely the need to increase our security and to always have a focus on that, and we work very closely with the police in doing so.
I have a thought, but I want to, do you have a follow-up or?
Yeah, I guess I'm just curious why then, first of all, I mean, the data I have said that there was over 340 school shootings in 2023. I mean, it's possible they quantitate things differently. So I'm just wondering why we don't have, somebody armed in the middle schools pretty much throughout the school day. I think that given, again, I'm not a security person, but given just those numbers and what we see in our country and what happened a few weeks ago, I just would think it would be, if you have somebody in the school that's armed anyway, some of the time in the middle schools, which is I think what you said, Andy, that some of the time there is somebody in the middle school armed. I don't understand why we don't have somebody there all the time that's armed.
I'll give you some information on that. I think that's one aspect of it. Right, we've had workplace violence shootings on Army bases, plenty of weapon systems. At police stations, plenty of weapon systems there. What we have here in West Hartford is the strength of the community, the communication that we have here, the resources available with the number of officers we have on the street, our response time, the technology we have in the schools. And when you put all of those pieces together, that's what creates that umbrella of safety. It's not going to be just because someone has a firearm that you're going to deem something safe. So when we put all of those pieces together and the constant communication we have between the school district, security, our officers, our students, some of our best resources are our students with the anonymous alerts, which help us immensely. That's what keeps this blanket of safety over West Hartford school students.
Claire.
So I've been in many lockdown drills, and we know when they call a lockdown, whatever your code is, we get the kids secure in our classrooms. And immediately, that building is solid, there's no one in the halls, and we are safe. And if there is an intruder, they're at one spot, and the police are there within minutes. And how many doors and windows are there in the building? And how many police officers would you need at every single door and window in that building? That one officer cannot be. You can't have enough police officers at every single window and every single door in your building. And all the security doors that you guys have, all the security, the office, and all the systems you have in place, and how quickly you can be there, and all the drills we go through, it is a great system. You guys do an amazing job. The one question I have, I've been asked this before, is the anonymous alert available in the middle school yet? And can it be available in the elementary? We have 14-year-olds in 8th grade. There are 11 and 12-year-olds that can get access to guns. We have 6th graders and 5th graders that can get messed up. And we need to be able to access anonymous alerts for kids that have parents that are doing stuff that shouldn't be doing things, and kids that have teenagers that they want to do an anonymous alert for. Anonymous alert should be available to anyone that knows something. And so I do think that it's great it's in the high school, but I really would like it to be something that anyone can use.
Well, it is, and it's always been in the middle schools as well. When we rolled out the system, it's been rolled out at the secondary level. And more so than that, it's also on all of our district websites, and so parents, anyone can access it. Roughly a third of the bulletins that we get from it are from desktop machines, from the internet. From the website, that people are accessing it from the website. So any parent can access it from anywhere online. It's on all of our websites. We don't have it available as an app for elementary schools, just because of the age group. But again, they each have on their website anonymous reporting tools as well. But it's always been available to middle schools, and it's always available to any parent at the district.
Do you have a way to know if your anonymous alerts are coming from which population?
Yeah, they're each targeted per school. When you submit an alert in a system, you have to indicate the school community that it concerns. And so that's why it goes then to the right people, to make sure with the way it's routed, it routes to the principal and to the people at those schools. Okay?
Gayle.
Yes, I just want to follow up. So I appreciate, your discussion about that, but I still feel that even having somebody in a school armed is it's a deterrent to some degree, because who's ever coming in there would know that there's somebody armed. To the immediate response has to be faster than the police department coming. I understand you guys come quickly, but having somebody on site has to be quicker. And the sheriff who spoke in Georgia, and I'm not saying he, is the end-all be-all, but he did say that in his opinion, having an armed guard or an armed person in that school saved people's lives. So I mean, I think that this is something that, should be thought about and should be discussed, given what we see in our country every day. I mean, I appreciate all the other initiatives. I appreciate what's going on with the students. I appreciate the mental health part of it, but I can't accept that all of that is going to be good as having somebody in the school that's armed.
Any other thoughts or comments? Ethan.
Let me start, and I'll echo what others have said. Thank you for what you do. It's important. What the question I had as I was reading through the document was trying to put context into what's going on or what's been done and where we were, where we've been. And I also realized you only want to give out certain information, and this is a public record. My question is there like some kind of matrix where you can say, in the items that came to mind were like the entrances, the alert system, the cameras or whatever, here's where we were, and here's where we are, and here's where we're going. Because I didn't get each of the programs is great, but that's not your safety. Your safety to me is more some of the physical, as well as all the deterrence that was mentioned. And I don't know if there's a way to do that. I also appreciate the fact that you don't want to give out certain information, because I think unknown in this business is probably good.
Yeah, and that's a large part of it. We don't publish a list. I can share with you, because again, you haven't been here for some of the previous work we've done over the past decade, really. But we've systematically redesigned all of the entranceways to our schools and put various hardening aspects in. And so that's been a process over the years as we've been rebuilding, redesigning school entranceways. When you go into our schools now, you go into really a holding area, man traps, for example, where you're double buzzed in. Those are systems that we've systematically gone through and put in place over the past decade.
No, and I've been in those traps, but I don't know if it's all schools or, I mean, it just,
yeah.
All right. But it would just be interesting to say this is where we are. This is where we've been, this is where we are. So if you can do it separately, that's fine. I appreciate.
Also, by statute, every 2 years, we have to do a threat and vulnerability assessment at every school in the district. So we work with the West Hartford Police Department, school security, school administrators, and we go over approximately a 300 questionnaire document. What are our vulnerabilities? Where do we need to work towards to better secure? So we do have a way of tracking it. So we just completed that last year with the West Hartford Police Department. That gets incorporated into our all hazard plan. So that's how we track what we need moving forward, because technology changes, threats change. So by every 2 years is when we do those assessments.
Is there a summary or something? I just feel like a responsibility to at least know what's going on. And I realized reading this, I did.
I mean, it's submitted with our all hazard plan, which I think, they would have access to see, which we file with the state every November, so.
If there's someone. Thanks.
Other questions or comments? LaToya.
Thank you. Mine is more around the sense of psychological safety. I know y'all mentioned earlier about that also being a big part of it. And I was really impressed last year, facilitating a restorative justice training, and there was West Hartford police officers in that training, and I just think that's awesome. And it's really rare actually to see that, and I just want to commend, West Hartford PD for that commitment and making sure that within our SRO community that it's a relational thing where students can feel safe to come to police officers in their schools. So I thought that was awesome, so I just wanted to say that. And then my other question is just around, can we get some more information along the way around some of those interventions that are taking place that are supporting some of that, building the psychological safety in terms of the hate speech? Because I feel like that's one of the bigger issues that could kind of create that feeling of unsafety in our schools. And just wanting to know what, I think kind of along to what Ethan was saying about the other thing, but where were we versus where we're at and where we're headed? The things that we're implementing, are we seeing a decrease in some of the hate speech stuff? Are we seeing any change as a result of some of these interventions? And I ask that because I know some of the data that can come from that can also inform us on the community side, families too, on what we could also be doing to help lift up what's happening in the schools. So just wanted to ask about that.
I'll take that. I think we can very much continue to provide you updates in terms of things like hate speech. I think that falls very clearly across multiple lanes, certainly within our equity advancement. But it is a part of our focus. We talked last year, and we continue to talk about one of our strategic areas of focus is in building a sense of true belonging with students and combating hate speech, combating whether it's stereotypes, some of the other, some of the early combating, sex-based harassment. All of these things are obstacles and to a sense of belonging. And so it's work that's ongoing. Relative to hate speech itself, I can tell you that one of the things that we did, even from a district level systemically this year that was new and a great improvement, was that we put together a small professional learning. We put it into our online system so that we could have an accountability that 100% of staff members have seen our hate speech protocol and our hate speech, essentially guidelines, especially in our charged language guidelines, where charged language might be encountered, whether it's in primary source documents or whether it's in some historical literature or something of that, and then there's follow-up and conversations that happen in departments in terms of what that means. I do think that not only a sign of some of the happenings in and around the world have created potentially some upticks, but I also think that our emphasis and our effort in and around hate speech have also created greater visibility on it, created greater awareness. We're sending letters home more frequently perhaps than we may have in the past, and that creates the opportunity. Someone sees it and says, well, wait a minute, this happened over here as well, or something. So I do think that some of the attention that we're putting onto it as a positive brings light to things, and bringing light is a good thing. But it I would say that we're definitely evolving with this in terms of we've developed some guidelines, we've developed some shared common practices in and around it. had greater community conversations. We had a book read this summer. So from where we've been to where we are, I think we're moving in the right direction. And happy to continue to provide updates on that, which is the question that I heard.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I think, what I was thinking about is that, obviously y'all can't do this alone. And so I'm thinking a lot about just us as a West Hartford town too, and just how that can be helpful in informing how we move and how we support, what our conversations look like with our neighbors, and how we can kind of be that village together. So thank you.
Claire.
How many years have we done the Sandy Hook Promise? And have you seen results from that? It'd start with hello
Yeah, I'm
and
going to
say
go on a limb
something.
and say it's about 2018, I believe.
Has
when
it
we
been a
started it.
successful
I
program?
would say so. I think it's been. I think it.
Is it still going
anything-
strong?
It is. Anything that really gets students at the middle school, at the high school, comfortable talking about those issues, I think is a very positive thing. I would defer to our student reps and ask what your thoughts on it would be.
I do have to say I don't think that I've really seen a lot about this in my experience. However, like specifically the Sandy Hook Promise, but there have been in general some programs, they have different names that basically have the same purpose. And I definitely think it's been helpful to bring up these issues where we can at least start to talk about them.
And when I was in middle school, I believe that at Cedric we did have we had like a meeting in the auditorium for like different grade levels so that we could like familiarize ourselves with the Sandy Hook Promise. And I think it really did, again, like Sarah said, benefit us to like kind of open our minds to communicating about these types of issues so that we're more aware of everything that's going on.
Okay.
Other questions or comments? I want to say thank you so very much for the summary. I'm going to try to speak without getting tearful, but I can't promise that. Because it's unfortunate seeing you all talking about what we're talking about. And that's no offense to you all, but just the reality of what we as a district and what we as a country face in terms of what our young people are exposed to is something that, as a human being, we don't want any young person to experience, and especially as a parent. And so I am glad to hear that in terms of the anonymous alert, glad to hear that it is increased in terms of usage. You mentioned from when it first was conceived, about 70-something, now over 400. It's a blessing in disguise. It's great that so many are using it, but it's unfortunate that it has to be used. But glad that there is an outlet for our young people to use it. I very much appreciate you describing the umbrella approach when it comes to keeping our children safe. I hear you, Gayle, in terms of wanting an immediate means of intervening when there is a safety risk for our children. But we as a board, we as a town, we as a community must recognize that our intervention cannot start in the moment when crisis is happening. It starts from when we're raising our children, when we're teaching our children. You made reference to it begins with a smile. It begins with interacting with them. And we have to remember that all of us play a role in helping to educate our young people and keeping them safe. All of us, whether you have children or not, because what is happening in your household, in your backyard, is going to impact what's happening and what my children are exposed to and what your children are exposed to. So there is no silo approach when it comes to keeping our community safe. We all have to be invested in this, and it starts as early as possible. As early as possible. And it's unfortunate that it may at times escalate to coming to a point when you have to go to the school for a shutdown or to secure. That's the ultimate worst case scenario. And I pray it does not ever happen here. But when it happens in other districts, in other states, it impacts us as well. Because we're watching it on the news, and our children are watching it on the news. And I don't know what adult did not get emotional when they saw and read and heard what happened in Georgia. And the fact that we're talking about how many school shootings just this calendar year. So pardon me for having a moment of a tirade, but before I became a board member, I am a human being and I'm a mother, and that will always be the case. And so I thank you so much for your vigilance. I thank you so much for what you do in ensuring we keep our children safe, we keep our community safe, and we have to do it together as a community. I will get off the soapbox. All right. Thank you so much. And so with that, we will continue on with our agenda and moving on to personnel actions. And we will receive Mr. Julio Duarte, who will report. Passing the microphone over to you.
All right, I told Paul I should have gone first. I'm not sure I want to follow that now, but appreciate all of your passion, honestly, on a topic that's dear to my heart as well as an educator and as a father. So moving on with our personnel report, it can be found on page 17 of your board packet. As you know, I provide regular updates to the Board of Ed related to our certified staff, including teachers and administrators. Since I covered much of this during our opening schools report, tonight I'll provide simply a brief update of some of the key numbers. So the numbers I'll share to you reflect those since June. And so that's why I'm happy to look at those, and you may see some discrepancies. But as you can see, we had 23 resignations, 6 leave of absences, and 1 retirement. And we also hired 41 contracted teachers, 17 interim teachers, 17 administrators, again, 11 of them being our new elementary assistant principals, and then 5 interim administrators. Again, the difference between a contracted teacher and an interim teacher is that an interim teacher is here filling in for someone that we anticipate returning at some point, either during the year or next year, whereas a contracted teacher is someone that we've offered a contract and expect them to be with us for the long haul. So at this point, I'd be happy to answer any questions that the board may have.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Yes, Gayle.
I'll just ask the same question I ask each time. Is that sort of on par for what you usually see in terms of resignations?
It is. So our retention was at about 6%, I think, this year. We tend to be 5.5%, 6%. So that it's right on par there.
So when you say 6%, you mean what does that mean?
Retention. So folks, if you take our entire staff of how many tend to leave every year and how many we would retain. So we'd say that we lose about 6% of our staff every year to various reasons.
Okay.
That's 94% retention.
Yes, I guess that would have been a much more positive way to spin that. So.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions or comments? All right, well, thank you very much. Moving on now to routine matters where we have approval of the minutes. Seeking a motion that the Board of Education approve the minutes of the regular Board of Education meeting of September the 3rd, 2024. Is there a motion?
Moved.
Thank you, Ethan. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, LaToya. Discussion? All of those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? The ayes have it. Thank you. Moving on to information and reports. Board members, do we have any communications and reports from other organizations? Any other discussions? I do want to say, and I apologize for not saying this at the top of the meeting, that our teammate Shannon is attending a work conference, so she does apologize for not being here, but her absence certainly is excused. So thank you, Shannon, for all that you do. And Jason, thank you for your presence with us as well. Moving on to future business, we have announcement of future meeting dates. Our next Board of Education meeting will be on Tuesday, October the 1st, 2024, here in room 314 at 7 o'clock. Then we'll meet again on Tuesday, October the 15th, 2024, once again here in room 314 at 7 o'clock. And then Wednesday, November the 6th, again, Wednesday, November the 6th, 2024, here at 7 o'clock in room 314. And then we're back again on Tuesday, November the 19th, 2024, room 314 at 7 p.m. Do we have a request for any future agenda items? Seeing none, do we have any visitors that would like to make a comment? Seeing none, we do not have an executive session, therefore seeking a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, Claire. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Gayle. Meeting adjourned at 8:21.